I'm Dale Larson. I've been turning this is my 43rd year of wood turning. Roger's filming for me, so I appreciate his help. Today we're going to show how to finish turn a dry bowl, and I thought for a second I would just show you a few steps in how I get the bowls dry. And so Roger's going to show you two piles of wood over here. Both these piles come from the ice storm in February. So this came from down Estacada, and I roughed this out on the bottom March 5th, 2021, and then the name of the owner, Patterson. So every bowl out of this tree has Patterson's name on it, so I can track it back to this tree. Over here we have some of Randy Ryan's oak tree that got damaged in the ice storm. I don't normally turn much oak. It's some kind of white oak. We don't know the exact species. It's not Oregon white oak. But oak likes to crack, so what I've done is I put it in a bag with dry chips to slow the drying down. If I don't do that, this oak will just crack up. Now, the bowls stay here on my floor until they're stable. Now this maple, which is early March, so we've got March, April, we're filming end of May. So we've got almost 3 months into this. This wood is almost stable. Once it's stable, I then move it up to the wall, my back wall of my shop until I get to them. They will dry down to about 12–13% in the unheated part of my shop here. And then over to the left here is my drying room, and that is kept at 70 degrees year round. And I move them in there, and within about a month they dry down to 6 or 7%. So that's the process from wet tree to dry bowl. All right, so once the bowl's dry, and you can see this one here is February 14th, 2017, so a little over 4 years ago. If you look at the bottom, you'll see there's an extra ½ inch of wood here. That's where I'm going to screw into. It will never be part of the finished bowl. But I need to get this sanded flat so my faceplate will sit on here flat. So I've got this flat now, it's ready to go on the faceplate. So we're going to go over to my workbench and put a faceplate on this. All right, so now we're over my workbench. We've got a flat here. And you can see I've got different size faceplates, and so I can use whichever size faceplate is appropriate for this project. This is my favorite, another piece of faceplate that was made by Howard Bohr. And I'm just going to set it right on here. We'll get these out of our way. This is a flat sawn bowl, so it would have dried uniformly, so I can just kind of sit here on the bottom. The grain is running this way. I'm just going to center it. Drill one hole first. So I want to talk about screws for just a minute and faceplates. All of my faceplates have countersunk holes, and I use number 12 screws because they completely fill the hole in my faceplate. So whatever the size of hole you have in your faceplate, you need to have a screw that fills that whole hole. If you use a smaller screw and you get a catch, your bowl can shift on the faceplate. So you want to use a screw that fills the faceplate. Now I'm just going to put in 4 screws on this. That should be significant enough for this size bowl. When I'm roughing out, I use chucks to rough out. When I finish turn, I invariably use face plates. It gives me more options, and you'll see why here in a little bit. If you were a production turner like Glenn Lucas and Mike Mahoney, you couldn't afford that. I can. This is really important. I spent a lot of my life. This bowl is not round right now. I want to make sure the tool rest clears. just to get it down to round. This is 5/8 D-way bowl gouge here. Okay, so now we're on the outside of the bowl. We know how we got a clean surface on the inside, not finished, just down to round. Now we got to get the outside round. You notice I did not come off this edge. I'm going into this edge. You don't want to come off this edge, you can break it. It's an unsupported side. Okay, we're round at the rim, almost, close enough. All right, we switched lathes so that we can film this part of it. My big bowl lathe, we can't get access to film. So we switched over to my shiny new robust lathe. Everybody should have one, by the way. And all I'm doing now is just getting the outside round. I just want to find out how much wood I have. So, speed is probably, I'm going to go up a little bit, probably 550, 600, somewhere in that ballpark. I'll talk about cutting angles in a minute. Right now I just want to get this wood round. Over now to my 1/2-inch Glen Lucas bowl gouge. I've got 1/2-inch bowl gouges by D-way, Robust. They're all good. Thompson. They're all good tool makers. All of them. All right, I think we're down to round. Not quite. Not quite round here. And here, you can see where the spalting has moved into this piece of wood. This brownish gray color is spalting. So we're not quite down to round. I've got to get down to round. I've got the handle right into my thigh. I've got the tool rest up close to the wood. And I'm just starting up with the weight on my left foot, and I'm shifting the weight to my right foot, and I'm not moving my body or my arms at all. I'm going to kick the speed up just a hair. See the nice shavings we're getting? I have the cutting edge at about 45 degrees to the wood. If I bring my tool handle up like this, the cutting edge is flat to the wood. I won't get nearly as good a cut as I get when I put the tool edge up at 45 degrees. And you can see I'm just shaving the wood off. And I can hear there's no tool rest, there's no tear out, excuse me. All right, let's just take a quick look at that. Okay, we're down to round, except right up here at the rim. We'll fix that in a little bit. So now, this is just a simple salad bowl. I just want a nice simple curve from down at the foot up. I'm going to get the tool rest out of the way and take a look. To me, the foot is still too big. I'm going to reduce the diameter of the foot a little bit. Right up here, I have some tear out where I was going a little bit too fast with the tool with the 5/8, and I'll clean that up. So I'm going to get the foot down a little bit in diameter. You'll see me touching this. I'm actually looking at the profile up here, but your hand can feel shapes that your eye can't see. So I'm still way too bulky right down here by the foot. So I got to get rid of some of this wood. Better. I got a high spot right there. All right, I'm going to move my tool rest angle a little bit here. Now I'm going to work on this part up here. One of the things I learned, in '97 I took a class from Ray Keys at Aramont, and I didn't realize how much by sound I turned. And in my shop, when there's a noise made, I make it. When I was in that class with 14 students with Ray, there was a lot of bad sounds in that room. And every time I heard it, I kind of jumped. And it taught me, like right here, I can hear I'm not getting any tear out, nice quiet cut. Oops, see, here, that was a harmonic vibration. I'm quite a ways over the tool rest right there. Lighten my cut a little bit. And now I'm going to come up and complete this curve. Okay, I got a high spot right here. I'm going to move my tool rest in closer so my tool is not hanging over the tool rest too far. Feels like I got a little bit of a rough spot there. Let's just take a quick look. No, it's okay. We're okay there. All right. So now I'm going to come up, finish up by the rim. Oops. I keep reaching up here. That's where the start stop is on my other lathe. Now I'm not going to go off this edge again. Remember, if you go off this edge, that's an unsupported cut. And you'll chip it out, or could chip it out. Alright, so now I'm pretty happy with that. So, no tear out to speak of. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take walnut salad oil. I learned to turn with oil from both Ray Keys and Raffin. It softens the wood a little bit, and so you can just make the final cut a lot cleaner. The whole point here is to reduce the amount of sanding we have to do. And you can see how wild this spalting is. I don't normally like spalting in madrone because it turns the wood from kind of reddish colors to this dull brown. So. Now I'm going to go to shear scrapers. The first one's just going to come in on this edge for about a ½ inch. All the rest of them will be up from this way, from the bottom up. Okay. Again, the tool is held at about 45 degrees to the wood. It's real light. You're just taking off the high bumps. Okay. Down around the foot, I'm going to use my little less than 90 scraper. This is just a piece of planer blade that I've made. I'm going to do the foot, and then I'm going to come in this way. So 45 degrees on the foot. Now on the bottom of the bowl. Looks like I probably have my hand in the way. Let me see if I can move my hand out of the way. Okay, a little bit more oil, re-oil it. Come back in here, do the foot again. Okay. Again, the scraper about 45 degrees to the wood. No pressure on the wood. I have what's called a knife edge on this scraper. I have taken over to the grinder, put a new edge on it, taken the burr off, and then use the Veritas carbide to roll up a knife edge on it. All right, just here's the two scrapers I have. The big angle doesn't really matter. The front edge just has to be less than 90. I've taken it over to the grinder, put a new edge on it, taken the burr off with the diamond hone, and then I've taken over the Veritas and I've rolled up this edge. So this edge is a knife edge, it's not a burr edge. And so it's just a nice, you'll get a nicer cut, and it's very, very sharp. You can cut yourself with this edge. So that's the two I use on the outside. When we go to the inside, I'm going to go to the Boxmaster, now D-Way tool, and this is negative rake. And it's just your typical negative rake, and I will use this one on the inside. And this same thing, I went over to the grinder, put a new edge on this, taken the carbide and rolled this edge up so I have, a knife edge on this curve. And you'll see me use this on the inside of the bowl.
And again, you take the burr off, then do the knife edge?
Not on this one. I just take it to the grinder, grind it, and I take the carbide. I'll show you real quick. Right off the grinder, I take my little portable carbide, and I just roll this edge. And it just makes it a knife edge. It's very, very sharp. We'll use this on the inside. So I don't splatter oil all over mine. Now I'm just going to use a regular cabinet scraper. Any carpenter uses them. Again, the angle is going to be about 45 degrees to the wood, this way and this way. Again, I don't go off this edge, I come in on this edge. And then I reverse it. Same thing. And now it'll take very, very little sanding to finish this bowl. All right, so now we're ready to sand. I've turned the speed down. Dave Ellsworth had an article in the American Woodturner a few years ago. He sands at like 200 RPMs. So I don't go down that low, but I do slow down to sand. If you have your lathe going too fast, the sandpaper will just skate over the wood. So I'm starting with 100. Generally I don't need to power sand on the outside. We'll be power sanding on the inside. Because I have oil, I just got the gunk off with that paper. So right now with 100 grit, I just want to get rid of all the tool marks, which I've done. So that's 100. 120, and I'm using aluminum oxide, which we had a guy from 3M come in and about 15 years ago when we were down at the university and did a slideshow. Aluminum oxide kind of looks like the gravel out in your driveway. It's quite roundish or whatever. But it's a very durable sandpaper. So, and this sandpaper I use is from Klingspor. I really like Klingspor, German outfit. They very uniform. The problem with cheap sandpaper, and the 3M guy talked about this, you really shouldn't buy your sandpaper at Home Depot or at Lowe's or that, because the sandpaper companies put all their second quality sandpapers at those locations. Buy good stuff like Norton, or there's other good sandpapers out there. But use good sandpaper. Don't buy it at Home Depot and Lowe's. Or worse, Harbor Freight. So now this is 180. It's touch the foot there a little bit. And so one of the big advantages of sanding with oil, turning and sanding with oil, is you see there's just simply no dust. And so I'm looking now just to see if we got rid of all the heavier grit. Okay, we got a little bit heavier grit right there. I'll keep going with 180 for a minute. You can see just no dust coming off. Okay, that's 180.
You ever sand in reverse?
I will. Roger just asked me if I sand in reverse, and you'll see me in just a minute. If I was turning a brittle hardwood like black locust or white oak, myrtle wood, I would be reverse sanding every grit on the brittle hardwoods. This is a really nice wood, and it's quite a forgiving wood, so I don't have to do it. But if I was, like I said, if I was doing hard brittle woods, locust, white oak, myrtle wood's terrible. I would be reverse sanding every grit. And I would have, potentially, I would have started with power sanding. Okay, we're now down, we're down to 320. I'm going to show something here real quick with the sandpaper. So I've been using aluminum oxide. This is made in Poland, but it's by Klingspor, a German company. And the numbers are P220. P means this is a European grit. I'm now going over to Canadian. This is Canadian paper, American Canadian. And it's 320. There is no P in front of it. These are different grit systems. They are similar up to about 220. After 220, they wildly diverge. So just be aware that one's not better than the other, they're just different. And so now I'm going to 320. If I went to P320, that's a heavier grit than American 320. Just be aware there's different grit systems. So, and now I'm going to silicon carbide, which if you look at it under a microscope, silicon carbide looks like shards of glass. It's a much sharper abrasive than aluminum oxide, but it's a softer abrasive, so it wears out quite a bit. Now this is the last one, so now I am going to change the direction, reverse and sand. Reverse directions. Okay. And reverse once more.
Unknown comment.
All right, we should be done sanding. And you can see we didn't spend a lot of time sanding. If you get a close-up look at this, there's no tear out, nice smooth finish, and we're done on the outside. We won't touch the outside again. All right? Okay, this is my probably the handiest thing I've ever built in my shop. It's my sanding cabinet. It's on wheels. It's got my sanding grits by grit. This is 80 grit. 100, 120, 180, 220, 320. I have all my disc here, and so I can move this to whichever lathe I'm working. There's extra sandpaper here down to 600 and 1,000 disc sanders, and I can hold my other stuff here. So this is a really handy little thing to have in a shop, especially if you're lucky enough to have multiple lathes. But this sandpaper all looks alike, so you got to keep it where it belongs. So that's it. So now we're ready to do the inside of the bowl, so I'm going to start with the rim. I've got a J tool rest on here from Robust. You're going to see how I use it here in a minute. But I'm going to do the rim right now. You want to do the rim now while you got all this wood down here so you have less vibration. If you do the whole thing, then come back and try and do the rim, your bowl's going to flex. So 3/8 inch one-way bowl gouge. I'm going to turn the speed back up now. And it says 700 roughly. That's a little bit fast for Dale. And I don't leave the rim flat. I want to crown it or taper it or do something, but don't leave it flat. If you leave the top of your bowl flat, your bowl will, it just won't look good. And when I do these open form bowls, I normally put a taper up here on the edge, just because you don't want to leave this edge sharp. And I'll show you why you don't want to leave it sharp here. Now I'm going to cut this edge off. It's going to be an unsupported cut, but I'm going to do it really, really light. I just put a little camphor on there. That way, when it's in the kitchen being used, it bumps up against the wall. It's not going to ding this edge. And if you leave it sharp, I don't know if Roger's camera can pick it up. There's two parallel scars right here from where I stuck my wrist into this edge. The good news is that when that wood cuts into your skin, it cauterizes the blood vessels so you don't get any blood on the bowl. Just looking okay, looking good. While I'm here, I'm going to oil this up. I'm going to come back to my little less than 90 scraper, 45 degrees to the wood, take a real light cut. There's the camphor's real clean, we won't hardly have to sand that. And now we're just going to, same thing on the rim. You can hear a little bit of harmonic whenever I put pressure on there. Feels pretty good. Take a quick look. Okay, the rim is cut clean. Okay. Now we're going to go, I'm going to turn the inside in 3 steps. I'm going to do about the first 1.5 inches. I'll do the corner and then I'll do the bottom. And I learned this from Wally Dickerman up at the Seattle Symposium in 1989. You do this first one, get the rim exactly how you want it. Before you move on, you have more support that way. I'm going to use my 1/2 inch bowl gouge, again, Glenn Lucas's. And I'm going to come in real slow at first. If you just stick this wood in there, it's going to stick the tool into the wood, it's going to kick over to the left. You kind of got to go in slow until you've got a beveled ride on it. I should show you on the back of my gouge, I have ground off the back corner so that as I go around this corner, if you leave this back corner sharp, you'll burnish the wood, you'll bruise the wood. It's really hard to get those bruise marks out. All right, so I'm just going to, same cut, I'm just kind of like scooping ice cream here. I'm going to have the rim, for this bowl, it's about a 10.5, 11 inch bowl. I'll probably have about 3/8 to a 1/2 inch on the rim, a little bit, somewhere in there. The wall thickness will be about 3/8. The bottom of the bowl will be around a 1/2 inch, maybe a little bit more. I try to leave a little extra weight in the bottom of the bowl. So, well, I'm going to change my handhold here so we can see the tool. Go in slow. Whoops, see it kick back. I've got to brace my hand here. Sorry. Let's just check it now to see if we're pretty good. Just see where we are right down there. We are at about a 1/2 inch, so we've got a little bit of wood. I'm going to take my little diamond hone now that we're getting down to the finished cuts. And I'm just going to touch up this edge. All right. Now I want to go in real slow. I'm going to slow my tool cut down, and that'll allow it to cut the wood a little bit cleaner. I'll try to get my hand out of the way as soon as I can. So I'll just move it back here. I can put my hand back here. It helps brace the wood a little bit. Now I've got kind of a ridge right here. I'm going to get rid of that ridge. Just you'll see why in a minute. So I'm going to start, this entry point is going to be with the handle down quite a ways. And I'm going to come in on the wood. As I come in on the wood, let me move my hand out of the way for the camera. As we come in, I'm going to bring the tool handle up. And you can see I'm just riding the bevel down as I bring this tool handle up. I'm going to oil this up. Now we're going to use the negative rake scraper, the half round negative rake scraper. So again, I'm going to hold it at about 45 degrees to the wood, real light, no pressure on the wood, and just come back out this way. I'll put my hand out here again to counterbalance it a little bit. Real light, no pressure on the wood. You can see it's just taking real fine shavings. You can hear how quiet it is. If you're making a lot of noise with this tool, you're doing something wrong. So, let's just take a quick look. Clean, no tear out, so we're good there. So now I'm going to do the next third. And this first third in the corner, I'm cutting above center. When I get down to the bottom, I'll be cutting at center. But here I'm above center. If I get a catch, it kicks the tool out of the wood. If I was cutting below center and get a catch, it'll drive the tool into the wood. So this part I'm above center. And next, I'm going to show you two different gouges with the camera here. I've been turning with my 1/2 inch. And I don't know if it's going to be visible, but it's a much sharper angle. I'm now going to go to my 5/8 around the corner, which is much blunter. It's a much blunter angle. It lets me get around the corner. So I'm changing tools because I have different angles on this front bevel. And let's see how much wood we have. We're not making a funnel here. We have about 3/4 of an inch of wood right there. All right, that's just about right. So I'm going to come in. Again, I've ground off the back edge, and I'm just going to cut through this corner, go down to about here. Come back. You can see I almost never take my tool off the wood. I want to know where the wood is. Come back. Find my angle. All right, so there's two things I want to check right now. First is parallelism. Does the inside and outside wall, are they pretty much parallel? And that's not too bad. Now I want to see how much wood I have down here, wall thickness. Oh, a little over 3/8, so we're actually pretty darn close to where we want to be. This feels pretty good. I'm actually pretty happy with that last cut. I think we're going to try and take one more light cut. I'm going to hone up this edge again. I've got a slight rise right there, so okay. Oh. Come in here. I'm going to slow down how fast I feed my tool into the wood. Let the tool cut the wood. Nice quiet cut. All right, I can live with that. Okay, oil. Okay, you can see the spalting the fungus really moves up the grain line in this wood very, very fast. All right, same cut that I just did before with the half round. Come in here, put it up at 45 degrees. I would have my hand over the top here, but then you couldn't see the tool working. I'm going to put one hand back here to support. I'm going to see if I can keep my hand out of the way. Real light, no pressure on the wood. We just want the high spots. All right, that should about do it. All right, clean. Again, no tear out at this point. Now, I actually have another, this is the small J tool rest. It looks like it'll work for this one here. I have two more J tool rests for bigger. Now we're going to go to the bottom bowl gouge. This is Doug Thompson's bottom bowl gouge. I'm not sure what the angle is here, but you can see it's quite blunt. And I actually have one that's even blunter, that's almost 90 degrees for really deep bowls. But this will work fine on this bowl here. And you can see I'm a little bit low. I'm going to raise the tool rest. The advantage of a bottom bowl gouge is it allows you to do this cut across the bottom, riding the bevel. And I can roll it kind of any way I want. It's a round shape on the bottom. Just measure our depth again. We got about 5/8 of an inch of wood there, so we got lots of wood. I'm going to come back and take one more light cut starting back here. I don't know if you can hear, but there was a harmonic there, so the bottom is, although it's cut clean, it's got a spiral pattern. Maybe I can show you that in a minute when I go to the scraper. So that harmonic is something I listen for, and this wood cuts so clean I'm not really too worried about it. But I have to raise my tool rest now for the negative rake. At center, I have to be flat. Once I get off center, I'll tip it up on its side. This tool has got a rounded edge here that it's riding on. That's important. You don't want a sharp edge on this when you're cutting up at 45. Oops. So right on center. When I get away from center, I can go up to 45. And I can feel, you should be able to see the, what I call a harmonic. Well, but I got it cleaned up pretty good. There's normally a spiral pattern here, but I'm actually pretty happy with that. All right, so now we're going to power sand. There's different sanding systems. I've also got Velcro, but this is called Merit, comes out of Korea. I really like it. The 3-inch pads are still available. The 4-inch pads now are not in production, so when I'm out of them, I'm done with it. So. Shouldn't take too much here. I'm looking for tear out down here on the end grain. It actually looks pretty good. I think we'll live with that.
So what grit did you start with?
I started with 80 grit, and now we're going to go to 100 grit. Get the gunk out of there where the oil and the sawdust combine. Now for me, I power sand just enough to get the tear out and the tool marks out. And then I go over to hand sanding, which you'll see in a minute. Howard and others will power sand all the way down. I'm just on the end grain here. I got a couple of spots. Dave Lancaster, another production bowl turner. He power sands all the way down. It's much quicker. Glenn Lucas power sands quite a ways down. All right, we're done with power sanding. Doesn't take a whole lot. I think I'll oil this up. Now I'm going to hand sand. Again, same grits, 100 grit. 100 grit, I'm just going to sand until there's no tool marks, no tear out. Again, no dust. It's nice. Okay. I'm happy. 120. Just touch the rim. I'm just going to touch this edge on the inside edge so it's not sharp. I don't want to round it. I just don't want it sharp.
You ever use the Abernet mesh type sanding?
Roger's question is, have I used Abernet? You know, just a little bit to play with it. I'm pretty happy with cling spore, and I've just never experimented beyond that. If I find something that works, I just generally keep to it. And cling spore has, the nice thing about cling spore is every grit is uniform. When you get done with like here 180, all the lines on here will be 180. Some of the cheaper sandpapers, you get done with a grit, and there will be 180 grit, but there will be a couple of 120 or 100 grit lines in your sanding. And so for me, cling spore puts out a good product. I'm happy with it. 220. So by using oil to do the last cut, using the shear scrapers, and slowing down the last cut, all those things just reduce how much sanding you have to do. 320. When I first started in 1978, I had my Sears half horsepower Craftsman round bedded lathe. And I bought my tools from Craftsman, the 12 set of spindle tools, which I now know spindle tools, that's all I had. For 12 years I turned with spindle gouges, turned bowls with spindle gouges. And didn't know better. Reverse it. It wasn't until 1989 I went up to Seattle, went to the 3rd annual AEW symposium, watched Wally Dickerman, watched Jack Stracker from Hawaii show us how to do power sanding. And then I took a class up at the Oregon School of Arts and Crafts. Bob Tuck was in that class, that's where I met Bob. And then in 1990 we started Cascade Wood Turning. And you know, we brought in people from all over the world over the last 31 years. So that should about do it. Yep, good enough. All right, oil, last coat of oil. You could put a little wax on here if you wanted. I think Mike Meredith's oil wax steel, that works fine. Mike Mahoney's works fine. It's just a functional salad bowl. This is not going to be a art piece. All right, so now I'm just going to take the screws out. And you can see I had left this second foot. We're now going to turn away this second foot. So we'll be back over here. All right, so when I reverse turn, I use these wooden jaws, and I've got 5 or 6 different sizes over here. This one here that I'm going to use today is for open form bowls. This one here is for closed form bowls where I expand out on the inside to hold it. I really like wood jaws. All of these different lathe manufacturers come up with different plates, and they come with those stupid black rubber buttons. So when you get them, first thing you do is throw away the stupid wooden button or the rubber buttons. And what I've done is I've used double-sided stick tape and screws to screw the boards onto the faceplate. And the wood is it's not one piece of wood. The grain is running this way. So I basically take a 2x6 and just cut pie shapes out of it and screw it on, bandsaw it round. And the nice thing with these jaws is I can true them up. So when I put them on a different lathe, they may not run quite true. And I'll put the bowl on there. If it's not running true, I just clean up whatever step I'm using, and the bowl will run absolutely true. And the thing is, with those 8 buttons, you're only holding at 8 points. With these jaws, you're basically holding at 360 degrees. So, let's see here. So, I'm just going to look at this. So you can see right now it's just touching at 4 points. So if I want to get a little bit better cut or hold, I'm just going to close this down. We're on, got to make sure I remember which step we're on. Okay, we're on that step there. We're on this step here. I'm just going to come in, I'm going to clean that step up. Make sure we clear. I'm just going to clean this step up so it's running absolutely true. Now it's running true. Gradually you use up the wood jaws. About every 10 years I have to put a new set on. Now, I would really recommend you could bring the tailstock up now and hold this in. It's much safer. I was down doing a demo down at Coos Bay 10, 12 years ago, and I said, I don't need the tailstock, I'm a professional. And I started turning, and I blew the bowl off the lathe right in front of a crowd. You know, I got to change tool rest. This tool rest is not for this lathe. Wait a second, I got to get a tool rest. But what I do is actually use the tool rest. You can put it right up against the wood. The bowl really can't come out. Okay, we need this to start. So you could make your cuts this way. You're going straight into end grain if you do that. I prefer to go into side grain, and I'm just going to work my way across and get rid of this wood. Cutting into flat grain is just nicer on the tool rest. So now I'm going to go back. Basically, I'm going to turn a shallow bowl right in the bottom. If you leave the bottom of your bowl flat, over time it'll rock on the table. So I'm going to, a little bit of a concavity. Riding on the bevel. Again, you can see the 3/8 has got the ground off back corner on the gouge. Still high in the center. I always put a button in the bottom of my bowls. Put some beads or do something in the bottom of the bowl. Put some lines. Just give it a little bit more characteristic so it's not just dull. Okay, now I'm going to slow down this cut. If I do it right, it'll be my last cut. Take a quick look. I feel a bump there. I don't think I got it quite right. Okay, I got a little bit of tear out on the button. I need to do that, and I've got a high spot right where my finger is. Take a little bit off the button. Okay, should be good. A little bit of oil here. I'm going to do the rim first, get it flat. Tool's up at 45 degrees. Just take a quick look. I can see it looks like the oil will show you where you got flaws. So I still got a tool mark right there. So we've got to go down a little bit more. Okay. See if that's flat, not quite flat. I'm just going to soften this edge a little bit. Look, a Looks pretty good, all right. Next up, I'm gonna do the button, 45 degrees on the button, just to shear scrape it. So the oil will show you where you got low spots. Okay. A little 1/4 inch deep gouge to do the wall of the button. Okay, a little 1/2 inch round here, just to do from the button over here to the rim. This is not negative rake, it certainly could be. Negative rake might do a little bit better, but this does pretty good. A little bit of oil, should be our last cut. I've learned I get the tool rest out of the way now to sand the bottom, but I have it here so I can support my hand. I've had a problem if I don't do that, my hand slips off and I damage my bowl up here. So I'm going to start with 120. We're working right at center here, so I could slow the lathe down if I wanted. That's not really necessary. Let's see if we've got all our... I'm going to move the light a little bit so I can see if I've got any tear out. Nope, we're good. All right. 180. This edge. Again, I don't like sharp edges on utility bowls. I think that's a mistake. 220. And 320. And I don't sand beyond 320 with domestic hardwoods. I don't see much improvement for domestic hardwoods. If you're doing exotics, you got to go further. All right, should be done.
How do you sign your work?
With a wood burner, we can do that if we want. So there's our bowl. And nice functional salad bowl. And about 10.5, 11 inches.
Cool.
So just right now, I would sign it Dale Larson, Pacific Madrone, 2021. And we're done. Thank you for watching how I turn a bowl.